All right. Man, I have a phobia that I have to admit. Can you hear me okay, Trish? I guess not. And that is that I would start the show by myself, which I am, because Latrice just had to jump off for a second, hopefully just to refresh her connection. We do have a lot of people coming on today. We're going to talk about a lot of cool stuff. I just happen to be floating it alone here for the moment, but I will now let everybody know about our great sponsors and resume, hopefully, with some people in a minute. Jazz Cabbage Café is Botanical Company, Redemption Cannabis, Real Leaf Solutions, Detroit Nutrient Company, Grow Green Michigan, Custom 420 Promos, and their line of clothing, Culture Clothing. All right, so I had Trish with me for a brief second. We're expecting Paul Tylenda to come on here with us any minute now, and we're going to discuss a bunch of good stuff. But in the meantime, Rick couldn't make it because he's got some work to do. If people could just evaluate a little bit for me and let me know how much more you appreciate the show when Rick cannot make it, that could offer up some good conversation. Hey, Adam. And hello, Indica B. And let's see if this works.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. I had to admit to everybody that I have a phobia of starting the show by myself. And it actually happened, and I experienced it. I somehow have gotten through it so far, but I'm sure there's repercussions later on in therapy and stuff like that. But
I have some technical difficulties.
yeah, that happens. I understand. But it did make me feel better that you popped on for a second, so I knew you were around at least. Probably.
I screamed shit and then hung up again. Yeah, I didn't realize that was going to happen. But I have a Pixel phone, and it just did an update. So every time I go into a podcast or a Zoom, it will ask me if I want it to be captioned, and it won't go away. It just stays there. It's like a glitch. So. Yeah.
Right on. So let me see. Yeah, Paul's going to come on here in a minute. And I did want to talk about a few things, but during the show, Jamie Cooper is going to join us. And then later on, Rick Anstiss and Stacy was on. Was that just last week or in the last couple of weeks anyway? And that was a good discussion about the unionization and stuff.
She had an interesting conversation with some people at Loom over the week or today. So she's going to share that with us today.
We'll get a little update on that. I was thinking about, and I want to ask, probably everybody who's on, including yourself at some point. I mean, I know that everybody's like completely immersed in the, commercial industry, but some people do participate in it. Some people participate in it a lot. Every once in a while, some people are close to it and kind of know what's going on, whether, buying in from retail stores or, otherwise, being employed or some other connection to it. But I guess there's kind of a couple of questions for people who are also watching and might want to hit the comments about it. If aware of this, what is your perception as a consumer as to what's going on and what the results are? And if you happen to be a participant in the industry or employed within the industry or have been employed in the industry, what type of consequences or fallout, are you experiencing from that angle? I was thinking, and I've spoken to a couple of people now about maybe doing a special show, on the industry and some of the fallout that's happening as a result of this weird saturated market. But I'm wondering what other people are seeing, what the views are from, the various perspectives out there. Trish, I don't know if you go to the stores very often. I know that you live in a world where there's a lot of caregivers around. But you also are very aware of what's going on, and all these different components are important. You're muted right now, just to remind you.
Oh yeah, sorry.
So are you seeing? Are you aware of either fallout for those involved in the industry, or what the consumers are experiencing in these kind of weird times as far as the commercial industry is concerned? I know, and this actually reaches into the other worlds of the caregiver system and other the legacy market, so to speak, or black market or whatever too, which is another conversation. But just wondering what your views are on that.
On the consumer market?
Well, from a consumer perspective, seeing what's happening
Oh.
in the commercial market, or like if you happen to be aware of those who have been tied into participation, employment in the industry, and what kind of fallout or consequences, are going on there. The saturated market is causing price reduction, a lot of competition,
quality.
There's a lot of stuff going on, and just trying to get some views on it. I think Jamie would have some good views on that, and Paul's going to come on in a little bit. But anybody watching or wants to participate in the comments with stuff like that. Also, still, recognize that Rick isn't here, and soak up the time and appreciate it while you can, because he's probably coming back.
No, I guess if I had a point of view of that, we have a dispensary on every corner out here, so they employ a lot of people here. They usually keep people around too, but we're talking about dispensaries. I don't know. It's things I hear from other places and from other people outside of Genesee County area. It seems very nightmarish in comparison, but out here we seem to be doing okay as far as I know. But I have been looking into that actually, because it is something that we are considering getting involved in through the Weedsters too as well. Stacy's been a big part of that. There is a lot of negligence as far as employees go when it is high turnover rates. We come from Flint. We're very aware and well educated on the sit down strike and how high turnover positions without any type of representation can go for somebody, which it seems like that is what's happening now. And it's kind of a slap in the face, considering the fact that the big deal was that there was going to be a lot of job creation for this, but it's very minimal in comparison, since people aren't able to stay in a position there for longer than 6 months, because then that would require them to follow by their promise and make sure that they have a living wage job. And from speaking to Stacy, and even, you can read Glassdoor or Indeed and go look at any of the major girls and whatnot, and see a consistent response from them. And it's just management doesn't care. All they care about is lining up their corporate dollar. Even down to growers, a lot of growers will openly admit, the bad practices that are happening in some of these grows. It's very eye-opening. Like, if you want to know really what's going on there, a mad person isn't going to lie about stuff, So that is as far as I'm going to get into it.
I've noticed a little bit, from being around and keeping an eye on stuff and being involved at times. But I'm hearing now more and more about the incredible rate of turnover that is taking place, even leading up to this saturated market. And we are now joined by attorney Paul Tylenda. Thanks for coming on, Paul. I appreciate it.
Good to see you.
And you're welcome, because Rick is not here with us today. I actually, if you can't tell, wish he was here. I like it when he's around, but he's got other stuff to do. So I really appreciate you guys coming in. I know you come on regularly anyway, but just understanding that you're going to come in and help me out with this conversation a little bit more than typical because of that. And I definitely appreciate it. I was just talking to Trish about her perspective on some of the fallout from the saturated market, and we were there's a couple sides. One is the participants in the industry, employees in the industry being affected in different ways, and what the consumer is experiencing. I was wondering if you have thoughts on those sides.
I do, and I'm still questioning the depths of where the market is and some of the ideas towards it. And I think in it must have been through one of the online, business quotes or motivational posts or whatever it was. There was some entrepreneur was talking about business success, and he had some questions. And one of the questions was, is the market saturated, or do you just have a product that no one wants? And it wasn't related to cannabis at all. It was just a general business question. But when I saw that really struck a chord with me, because to me, that might be part of the industry problem. which goes back to something that I think we've always talked about in this on this show, is that we're past the point of, do you have pot, yes or no? The industry was there for a long time to where the draw and the expansion and development of the industry was the fact that you could buy marijuana, that cannabis was available. And that was enough to really keep a lot of doors open, keep a lot of the prices high, and keep things moving. There was also some novelty with legalization and sort of the floodgates from that aspect. We're getting, kind of buoyed by the caregiver market and the home grow market and the traditional market, whatever it may be. But it's progressed the market into, again, topics you talked about, which is brands, which is quality product, which is integrity, which it really has to do with the life cycle of the plant itself, of the product, and where it comes through. I mean, we've talked about, never mind where your stuff comes from, but if you test it with certain labs, it's going to get the side eye, right? So now we have that totality within the industry to where it's no longer about just cannabis availability. It's no longer about simple, safe access. We've really progressed and matured to a point where the industry is demanding more out of the providers, the retailers, and really of the administrators themselves. And we've seen this a lot in our food too. So
I think, let me just hit this real quick. And we talked about this last week, and then later on in the show, and especially when Stacy comes on, we'll get back into some of this again. And this is also about the fallout, what's all the employees there, of course, are dealing with stuff. But Paul, I think that if I'm not mistaken, you're kind of saying the saturated market brings with it a lot of kind of similar quality, similarly priced products, and how people distinguish themselves is kind of what's important, how branding has worked out, how reputation and image have worked out. And I've said, I was on, I light a joint with Ida yesterday and had a blast. And
it was good. Good job.
Oh, thank you. And,
thanks for the shout out too, by the way.
And I was on smoking rope too, and just these conversations, both like in kind of assessing what I'm seeing here, those who are treading water, maybe even stable or doing well. There's a certain perspective of history and culture in Michigan that's taken into consideration in decision making, and there are those people who have that kind of perspective and similar philosophies who are aligning with each other and maintaining those relationships, and have or know that is the approach from coming into this world, and those are the qualities I've seen from the companies that are looking to kind of get through this tough times.
And those are the ones that will survive, right? So survival is based on adjustment, and it's not about how do you adjust. It's about to what do you adjust. Mm-hmm. And sailors will tell you that too, is that your sails are always up, right? You're just moving them into the right spots to get yourself to the same goal. And so the ones that can adjust will. The talk about Loom closing down some places and then opening up, or downsizing or right sizing, whatever the corporate buzzword is going to be for that approach, you're going to start to see that more and more as we start to see the belly of the legacy cost of the industry. And those legacy costs are the people that came in with several $1 million and spent that money on overpriced real estate and overpriced machines and overpriced staffing and overpriced ideas, and their projections were at $2,500 a pound on the low end, and they really got burned by some industry realities. So the money that they took out at the time that they took it out isn't having the same projection and return that they thought it would in their 5 to 10 year plan. So now that their 5 to 10 year plan is saying, it's like, hey, we were expecting $3 million, running on all cylinders, and here we are based on the price and the availability and some of just the expenses that we have and some of the debt management that we have to account for. Our margins stink, and we're not able to keep up certain things, and really it's the margins that are causing a lot of these decision making, where it's hey, we need to keep somewhere around whatever our projected number is. So how do we do that? Well, we do that by eliminating our variable costs. So we know that if we close our doors and just pay the rent, we have just rent to pay. We have no labor costs. We have no inventory costs. We have no other management or another overhead to factor, so we can weather the storm with our doors closed, and then come back around when the industry is a little better suited to where our price points are. Because a lot of these companies like Loom, those, they very likely own that real estate. So,
I've been actually, I'm sorry, I apologize about
yeah,
that.
please.
No,
Please.
I actually been following Loom's business model from the beginning. Feel like I worked in corporate for a long time, so I kind of see a little bit of what's going on here. First, at the beginning, when there was a lot of municipalities that opened up to have recreational, we seen Loom and a lot of the bigger businesses kind of spread out wherever they could get in at that time. But now that we're having different areas like Detroit opening up, Ann Arbor opening up, bigger places that are more populated, they're not so much like getting rid of 4 stores. They're reconsolidating to a place where there's going to be more money and more people. So they didn't really close them down. They just basically moved that over to a place where they'll make more money. And that's basically it. And they do plan on having 50 stores in Michigan. Before it was 2024, but now it's 2025. So after following them for a little bit, you can basically compare that to Bell Tire's business model, and you'll see that there's a Bell Tire everywhere. And if it's not doing well, they're going to not close it down. They're going to move it to the next 10,
Right.
50 blocks away where they'll have more space and open. So, and they didn't lose. They're gaining right now, which is unfortunate, but that's where my perspective of it is.
Right on. More news on Loom a little bit while I'm thinking about it. I've heard recently, maybe I'm not sure from what source, to be quite honest with you, but I have heard recently, and it should be checked out just to make sure since I just said that. But they have decided to part ways with Viridis for using as their testing lab. And people remember the infamous 40+% or whatever THC thing, and that was tested at Viridis using the Viridis method and all that kind of stuff. So that's another issue kind of associated with what we were just talking about. That the ways for people to be distinguishing themselves in this market might be, say, we're going to not go down the sheep corporate hole of hey, we have high THC and this is our sativa and indica, stuff that we kind of are learning now, don't really describe effect or quality or things that would be really useful for people. And to say we're gonna leapfrog that stuff and really make it our job to inform people with as good of information as we possibly can. And easier said than done, because these market forces are really tough. But in this in this time you're dying anyway, what better, I can't imagine a better way to distinguish yourself. And I wish places already would have been doing that to some degree. Now, I know some places that practice philosophically close to what I just said, but they don't necessarily use it as a marketing promotion type thing, and maybe they don't really have to. But so it's not like they're not out there. That philosophy exists, and it kind of makes sense, and I think it's showing up, more than it has, during the course of this, this industry run.
I was going to say there's a lot of the slowness or the downturn in terms of where some of these places are, is that if you're getting some slow business, I'm seeing some businesses use as an opportunity to say, okay, everything here is $5 a gram. So why not take the time to learn about what's different and, try it out, really figure out and really get into the terpene conversation, get into the difference between what THC will and won't do and the effects that, certain things have within the cannabis itself. Because now with price point, you can make things more available, and you can, people are a little more daring, right? When they're not spending their whole check on their own stash, they can be a little more, they can try and they can sample. So that as an opportunity in the industry would be, it's good for the mom and pops, because they're sticking around saying, hey, look, not everything is about big high times looking buds or about 40+%. Let's talk about that. The reason why you're here, the industry has to offer, is this. Take a look around you, and the reason that these things are coming down or having so much fallout is because of this, right? And those conversations you want to have with your proprietor, no matter what you do, right? You have those conversations with your grocer and your butcher, and the typical old-fashioned approach to learning about the things that you consume. there's the opportunity.
Consumers should be informed. You know, I agree. Hey, so
You know,
Gummo's-
you were talking to me about from a consumer's perspective, and you just sparked my interest. Thanks, Paul. I really don't go to dispensaries that much. I think I've maybe been to a dispensary maybe 10 times in my life. And I did go to one recently, and I didn't know this was like something, because obviously I don't know. I didn't know they were adding terpenes to like other people. Like, so basically it's like just a like layer here, and then you can pick whatever layer you want to put on it. And I didn't know that it existed. Now that I do know it exists, it is definitely something I'm going to speak about. But I feel like that seems like that's going more in that direction in the first place anyway. So it's really going to be one of those things where if people don't start learning about terpenes, they won't know how well or good of a product they actually have.
So no matter what you're saying, we're going to have to get there, because that's really the
Right.
the nature of the plant. That's the truth. We're eventually
like,
have to
yeah,
get
give
there.
me a
since we're
menthol, buddy.
experiencing it.
I got that one.
So-
You know.
Hey, so I want to get to Gummo here just real quick. He says, my brother just got an 8th GMO cookies from Loom, and I swear the stuff tastes like mold. I don't know how it passed. So I don't know exactly, obviously, what was going on with that particular product. But one of the issues and one of the things that that sparked the interest of the state to start the investigation with Viridis is that they didn't fail microbial tests, and they would oftentimes be the second shot at it from other labs failing product, and it would pass there, and it would pass there in a quick turnaround kind of a fashion. So there's possibly an issue with that process. You know, that's still being that's what the investigation got started from. And of course, there's the Viridis method, which is the THC stuff, but there's also this microbial issue that's being looked into. And when they were asked to show the temperatures at which this testing was conducted, they said they didn't have to, and they didn't have the records. Every other lab I've spoken to said they easily would have provided that information as soon as upon request from the state. So I don't, that's playing out in terms of the investigation. So we'll see what happens. But
Jimmy, you mentioned the if Viridis isn't, or Loom isn't using Viridis, to me that's a lot of marijuana up for grabs in terms of testing, which is good for other labs, and it's good for business in the area. It also kind of prompts the next question in my mind, which is, who's the next Viridis, right? Who's the next lab that's onto we've got these methods and this is how it works and people will love it and look at our tests and this is, we're going to,
I don't know, but wouldn't you think twice if you were a lab like that now? Like 100%. After this experience?
Well,
hey,
I would
think
twice. I would think twice if I were the retailer or if I were the grower, right? Because now you're going to have this, which of course is in an industry, you're going to have these products that come to you with labels that you don't recognize. And you're going to say, okay, well, I've never heard of this lab, but obviously they have a license, they have a number, this has been tested, but I know nothing about it. So, if anything, perhaps this has turned up turned the spotlight on the labs from the consumer and producer and retailer side to keep everybody informed.
So Gummo was saying that based on his experiences, he believes that there was moldy cannabis there. And Theo is not happy with the regulatory agencies in the state. So, hey, by the way, I just want to bring Jamie on right now because Jamie Cooper's joined us. Jump in on the conversation a little bit. Thanks for joining us, Jamie. I'm glad you come on kind of late notice. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me. Nice to see you guys.
Hi.
And we'll get into a little bit more about what you have going on too, but we're kind of talking about this weird market, the saturated market, some of the fallout for industry participants and employees, and some of what the consumers are experiencing. Sophia.
Yeah, a lot changing, a lot going on right now.
Yeah. So what's any thoughts on those things? Any perspective on the state of the industry and how people are experiencing it from whatever side that you might be aware or have some perspective?
Yeah, obviously we're seeing the price drop pretty dramatically, and the price is dictating the market. And if some of these operators are not paying attention to that and seeing what their competitors are selling, it can be very, very tough. And we're hearing I'm hearing all kinds of rumors about acquisitions happening, some mergers happening. I haven't seen any official announcements around the ones that I have heard. So it should be interesting. Some of the big guys allegedly partnering up and merging together. So
Common Citizen and Skymint is one of the rumors I've heard.
I heard actually Common Citizen and someone else.
Okay,
yeah.
so I mean,
I heard it was Common Citizen and High Life.
Okay.
So
ooh, gross.
Yeah.
Well, any combination thereof, I guess I would have that reaction.
And this is all rumor, this is all rumor. I
don't have any substantiation either. I've heard
Yeah.
obviously similar stuff, so something's going on. Right?
Yeah, some things are happening for sure.
So, another thing I kind of wanted to touch on is, and when Anton joins us, hopefully we'll get like some more very specific information, because he had the most up-to-date conversation on this tincture issue. Trish, are you familiar with the state deciding that they put out a definition of tincture that kind of is contrary a little bit to a lot of people's understanding or usage of the word. Some states have gone far enough to describe it, to define it in such a way that, different things that the cannabis could be infused in is all tincture, as long as it's like meets that definition. But I guess somebody decided that a strict definition of tincture or something limited to what's infused in alcohol can only be considered a tincture. And that has implications for the milligrams that are allowed to be infused in it at a single time. And so a lot of people are confused about what that means. So I guess, Paul, are you familiar with that issue? And do you have an idea of what it means? And then I'll ask you, Jamie, just to see what your current understanding is.
I haven't delved into that. I mean, with the tincture idea, I think we're separating out the, I guess, trying to define what a tincture is not, to properly categorize it for its weight and its, because I think that's where we're moving towards, is that if you call everything a tincture, then you're eliminating certain products, or perhaps you're using that just as a maybe as an end around, right? Because is it tincture? Is it distillate? Is it something else? But I haven't really looked into like the depths of that and what they're trying to go after. But I've long thought that any liquid forms, any the sublinguals, and anything that like can be easily confused or easily infused or just dropped along is going to be like the next fear that we saw with gummies, where it's just like, oh no, kids can just drink this, or someone can come and spike your drink with it, or the great grand fears of the unknown of what's going to happen. I think that's what
I'm not shaking my head like you're wrong. I'm shaking my head like, of course, some idiots thinking like
right,
that.
of course,
somewhere,
because that's the next
and sorry to the idiot who might be thinking like that. I'm sure there's good intentions.
Right. It's the hard lemonade problem, right? Where someone looks at it and says, "Oh, I didn't realize this was what it was," and I get in trouble for it.
Right on. Jamie, what's your understanding of the tincture situation right now?
I am not really familiar with it, so I can't speak much about it, but I'm curious.
You're not alone, by the way, because a lot of people are asking what the hell the deal is with it.
Well, and I'm just curious of what their definition of a tincture is currently, and how they're planning to revise that.
So here Theo's got this is why some states have altered the definition so that it includes things like glycerin and the other agave or whatever else it might be infused in. But I'm assuming that this is kind of maybe a dictionary definition, that since there isn't any other definition, that I believe, typically that then goes to the dictionary definition as a way to resolve what it might mean when interpretation usually. So this says a tincture in medicine is defined as a mixture dissolved in a liquid, often ethanol or water. But that leaves some room, in my opinion, for for some other stuff. And who do we?
Everything.
Hey, Rick decides to join in. Look at this.
That's right. I decide to join in. That's right.
And then he doesn't sustain a very good connection. Okay, so just a tease from Rick for right now. See if he can figure that out.
Thanks,
but he's
Brandy.
in. I want to say he's in Adrian. if I'm not mistaken. And Gomo was recognized that Rick is there. We have a nice picture of him. There he is. He's either trying again or trying to refresh his connection. But anyway, I'm hoping. I don't know how much more information. Hey, Rick.
Hey, can you get me? Are you there?
Yeah, we got it now. Yep.
Yep. No, broadcasting from Endo.
Endo in
Nice.
Adrian.
Endo in Adrian. Endo is such a cool store. Just broadcasting.
Right on. And you're there representing, doing an appearance on behalf of Redemption Cannabis.
I have been. We've been giving away free ounces every half hour here at Endo. I'm doing a broadcast. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. So.
How far is that from Detroit?
Yeah. It is. It's a little ways, but.
So Brandy's right. That we're talking about the tincture issue right now, Rick. And I know that Anton's going to come on because I think you were part of the same conversation he was in yesterday with the members of the CRA. And you might have a little bit more of an up-to-date information than we currently have. So we're kind of waiting for that. But Brandy says the CRA says that other products would still be available, but not labeled as tincture. I think that's probably true, but I think there's an issue with how many milligrams can be in it at a time, and some people already have a bunch of product with more than 100 milligrams.
Yeah, that's
What
true.
they're trying to figure out.
You're on a broadcast, Jazz Cabbage Café. Yay!
Look at the excitement in that room.
It is. Anywhere I'm at, there's excitement. You know this. But
You see who I got to take your place here? We got Jamie from 420 Post.
yeah, I see. Yep. So easily slid someone else into my spot. Okay. I'm trying not to be jealous, but hey, there's a lot going on here. I should let you go. I just wanted to check in and say hi to Jazz Cabbage, even though I couldn't join the broadcast today.
Right on. Thanks a lot, Rick. Next
Nice
week.
to see you.
Bye,
Have a
Rick.
good one, guys.
Tell Ryan and Redemption to quit scheduling these things during the show.
That's Alan Iverson right there, by the way, in case you didn't know.
All right. Tell him we said hi. We're big fans.
I thought he
He's
was
not going to
taller.
call. He's not going to answer. I tell you that. All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Rick.
Did Rick lower his ear? Every once in a while, Rick does get a haircut, and I don't know for sure, but it's very possible. Especially he knows he's going to go out and.
You didn't recognize him.
That's great.
So the CRA says the legislature need to redefine tincture. That's probably true too, because some states have gone on their way to create their own definition to make sure that they're, that the usage was inclusive of the other things that we normally think about as tinctures.
I'm
That's
curious,
just the problem. They're going to make it up. That's just the problem. Like, it already exists, and now they're going to just make something up, and then it's supposed to be. And that just, my mind gets blown every day. That's the reason why my head's in a book all the time. That's why I'm going back to school again, because it's just like, it's just.
I just don't get
with
discretion available, kind of, and an interpretation, possible. How like why cause an issue with this? Although Paul did mention there are some potential things that those people could be thinking about when they do this, but I still think that's overreach.
Yeah, it's the same thing as any medicine. Like, my kid's cough syrup has alcohol and maybe a medicine in it or whatever. And then what is the medicine considered at the beginning of that, definition too? Is it like already made medicine or a plant? Because my idea of what a tincture was and always has been, as far as go back to 2500 BC, it was always an alcohol ethanol water with a plant matter. So see what happens. Who wants to take bets? Make something up. Come on, Paul, go.
So I think it's a little rough, but then again, that's not uncommon. There's all these considerations of things that don't seem like they're that important at the moment that we oftentimes have to consider because they're brought up by the State Department or by somebody else, and we start talking about there's all these other issues going on, but we start talking about, hey, deli style, versus keeping everything prepackaged. Yeah. And I'm glad that was viewed basically as here's our public meeting, show up and respond. And Director Brisboe intimated that he kept a basic tally and just went, well, it was obvious that the, majority of people really didn't want to see this happen. So we're not going to, so there's no threat of this happening right now. So at least that was good. And people should take note of that. So show up and be a part of these meetings if you want to help sway the direction that, one of these things goes in. So
Showing up
James,
works.
yeah,
No,
it does. And if I guess I said this yesterday on Ida's show and I believe it, that there's a lot of dissension and disagreement and diversity on our side of the issue alone. And oh, cool, we got Anton. We'll continue this tincture discussion. And but there are often times when we can align forces, or most of us align forces, and either stop something or move something forward. And kind of manipulating that into place, at the right time is what has happened a few times in order to really distinctly help things out. I just have faith in that. As much as things get crazy and people get down on each other and all that kind of stuff, I kind of believe that we come together when the threat is really.
Imagine if they just did a little bit more. If everybody just did a little bit more of that, how much better things would be. It'd be great.
What's up, everyone?
Hey, I'm joined
Hi,
by
Anton.
Anton, coming in late again, but that's going to be the case for a little while.
Yeah, 3 more weeks.
So yes, they are, Theo. They are offering participation via Zoom, and many people did Zoom in at the last meeting where I was. Oh, I don't. After Nestle's opinion, I don't know what that even pertains to or what it is. So I guess I cannot comment on that. I didn't hear that Nestle had an opinion on streaming in to state departments for testimony, and that was somehow either an issue or what that implies.
We talking about tinctures? Is that what I'm gathering here?
Yeah, and you know what? We don't know what the hell's going on. And,
all right.
And you have the most recent information because you're part of a consumer group with Rick and others, Brandy, who's on here too.
Yeah.
And I know that you posed the question to him, what the hell's going on with this tincture situation?
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, the most up-to-date information on the tinctures in Michigan.
I bring it right from the horse's mouth. Yeah. So yesterday we, Rick Thompson, Brandy, Marshall, Mitzi, myself, we had our monthly consumer connection meeting, which basically we meet with CRA, Director Brisboe, and other representatives from the agency, and we get to pose questions, and then we talk about those questions, and they usually answer them to the best of their abilities. And yesterday, one of the questions that was brought up was regarding the tincture situation. And to the best of my knowledge, I know there was some question regarding basically direction coming out stating that tinctures were to be alcohol-based, and people were asking, well, we've used vegetable glycerin in tinctures for many years. Patients have used them. It's a product that people want, and basically ask them why. Why is this a thing, right? So I did pose this question, and essentially this is where we're at, that there is I believe a 90-day pause. There's a pause on the forward movement of this whole tincture conversation while CRA evaluates what's going on. Because I think a lot of times people don't realize CRA is a very literal agency. And when they act in their capacity, every single word that they are looking at has a definition, and that definition has a bearing on how the regulatory function is going to occur. Okay. So in this particular situation, the dictionary textual, factual, meaning, if you will, definition of a tincture in the dictionary states that it's alcohol based, correct? So when CRA is looking at tinctures, they're looking at alcohol based products. So that's where that basically that piece of the pie came from, is they're looking literally at the definition. Okay. So why are they looking at this, and how does this have the bearing on other products? Well, in particular, when we look at, say, a vegetable glycerin tincture, they are not classifying, or going forward may not be classified as a tincture, but an oil-based product. Okay, so they're not necessarily banning the product or getting rid of the product. They're essentially, and the reason being is
So Brandy's done a good job of kind of like supporting a lot of what you're saying right now in
Yep.
comments.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I don't mean to stop you, but it seems like we're at the crux where how does the milligram thing now go down? Where's the issue with that? A lot of people are that's really the burning question. I think.
The milligram thing, as far as tinctures being allowed to have higher milligram concentrations, correct? So
Yeah.
And the product, the specific product that was used to show were drink enhancers, right? Where we don't want licensees who are to abide by a lower THC milligram content to then take, say, a drink enhancer and say, well, it's a tincture, which allows this other milligram content. So, and there were the other issues of alcohol-based tinctures not being able to pass residual solvent testing. So they want to make sure that they can clarify
because it's considered a solvent itself that should have been evaporated completely from the product, right?
Correct. So they want to make sure that those particular clarifications are set up so there aren't these types of questions, right? So it comes down to a clarification issue, and we want to make sure that the products that are supposed to have the particular THC milligrams are being included in their particular categories, is what it boils down to. Does that makes sense?
And so in order to change that, which it should be changed, in my opinion, although we're not going to satisfy somebody's fear of somebody, upping the, milligrams or whatever. You can do that anyway, by the way. You can combine a lot of cannabis together at one time and take it and have a lot of milligrams at once, with or without this.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So the law has to be changed to create a legal definition for the purposes of this industry in order for that to be in order for that to change.
Well, Director Brisboe was very confident that this is not a legislation issue, that this could be solved under the regulatory function and authority that he's been provided.
Right.
So that was one of the things he did clarify, and that was his hope. Like at no time was anybody looking to ban products or not allow products or anything. They just want to clarify.
In terms of rule changes, do they have to wait to be official every time through that? What is it, quarterly or yearly or something like that?
Yeah, the next rule change is, I believe, in January. They didn't indicate, they said this was a 90-day pause. So that would indicate to me, I mean, if you go 90 days from now, that isn't going to take us into January. So I don't know 100% on that answer, but it appeared that they wanted to solve this as quickly as they could to make sure that it didn't upset anything.
You don't have to necessarily, if there's a need, you don't have to necessarily wait. I mean, you don't have to go to the level of emergency either, but if there's a need, you don't have to wait until the next round. You can maybe supplementally get something in that would make sense. Is that
correct?
Paul, do you know about that? No? Okay, just curious if there's and you're muted too, by the way.
Sorry, the January date sounds right to me, but the 90-day thing, unless they are, where my mind goes is that unless they're only allowed to table things for 90 days or act for 90 days, or let's say not act for 90 days and then come back to it, would you know when the next, so 90 days would put us into October, which would be at kind of at the beginning of the next quarter. So maybe that's what maybe it's a quarterly issue. And
that begs the question of, would this be a rules change? And this is right. I just don't know. I'm posing the question do we need to change the rules, or are we simply clarifying rules that are already in place? And I think that may be where the wiggle room comes in.
If you're clarifying rules, it's a shorter road. If you're adding rules, you're getting to a whole procedural wagon train issue and
Right.
Well, I think the only way to clarify this rule in the favor of going back to making sense is stuck at the technical definition issue that you brought up.
Yeah, that's
So
the thing.
that can't change without some kind of other, rule change or definition being used.
Yeah,
Something.
and like I said, they were using the word oil-based product, which obviously would then differentiate from what a tincture is being alcohol-based. So, and I don't know, we didn't get into what other products would be considered oil-based. I mean, I guess to me, glycerin-based tinctures would be one of the only things to fall into that category, but I'm not sure what other
Coconut oil is
additives.
used for tinctures.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Coconut oil. Yeah. I'm not, I don't know the whole, all the different products that can be used, but yeah, coconut oil, vegetable glycerin, things of that
Agave
nature.
oil or honey,
Yeah. Yeah. I guess that would be.
I guess that would used to be considered an infused food, but it is used the same way, really. I mean,
Mhm.
You're really touching on the issue too of the problem in the definitions is to say, oil-based product. All I have to do is say this isn't oil, and I can perhaps get around or maybe not be subject to those regulations. Right now, I have this alien product, but in the same way as even if you were to be inclusive and say alcohol, oil-based, or any solvent-based material, it'd be more inclusive because but then I guess the answer to, let's say, a water-based or a water solution for tinctures is probably already exists.
There's not many things people haven't thought of to this point. I mean, we pretty much have a grasp on there's only so many mediums you can use to manufacture products. And I think as those products evolve, CRA is becoming more aware that there is just as the industry evolves, there's always going to be additional clarification that pops up. I don't think necessarily to restrict things, but to make sure that there's clear and concise information so that people are working within the parameters of what they want. And when they talk about THC milligram percentages, I get that. And I guess in a way I appreciate the fact that they're trying to clarify this, because the more clarification we have,
can we do it without disrupting market stuff though? And businesses,
well, right.
And, that kind of.
And I think I do think that is that. Yeah. And I think that's a fine balance. And I do believe they're taking that into consideration based upon what they, the conversation I had.
This product here, this squeeze product, it's a fast acting nano formula. I don't know if this is a tincture technically. There's no ingredients.
How many milligrams are in it?
20.
Okay, so it works anyway. It doesn't exceed any limitations even as an infused product. So
is it 200 milligrams and 20 per serving?
It's 100 milligrams of THC, 20 milligrams total, 0.68 fluid ounces. But that's the.
Oh, that's what I meant. The milligrams. So it's capped at 100. So it would work anyway. It's not. It doesn't exceed
it still fit in. But like it smells to me, it's probably alcohol based.
There you go.
But again, no idea what I bought. Actually, no idea what I got.
Mm-hmm. And I think I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jamie.
No. I just want to I do kind of want to wrap it up and get into a little bit of a conversation with Jamie a little bit more directly. But please, final thoughts on the tincture situation.
Yeah, final thoughts. I think they're working on it. And the conversation I had appeared that they were working on it in the most unbiased way, if you will. And they're doing this with the recognition that they don't want to upset the industry, but they do want to make sure that the regulations are clarified and that everybody's doing their job. So that was the gist that I got.
We can't, we can't escape a little bit of collateral damage, probably. Unfortunately, it's not as bad as it used to be in the old days, though, when there was like a rule change in the exact opposite direction after a bunch of money was just put up to satisfy the first version, and then it turned around again. That happened, a little roller coaster in the early days of this whole thing. So not quite as bad, but not ideal either. But thanks for the clarification. I know Brandy chimed in a lot with some good info too. So Jamie, thanks for coming on. Thanks for participating in this discussion with us. And we're going to go on to discuss some politics, get a little bit deeper into the industry issues and and show or talk about some of the candidates that we like coming up in the primaries. And so if you have that type of input too, we hope you hang around for it. But give us a rundown, basically what you're doing, the companies you're with, Sensi, all that kind of stuff, some stuff you have coming up, and get some good plugs in there. But then I kind of want to talk about your presentation tomorrow with the CRA and social equity and just the headlines of what you're going to focus in on that discussion, and we'll let everybody know how they can participate in that too.
Okay, awesome. So what I'm doing now, I'm still doing Sensi Magazine. We just did the CannaCon after party on Friday, was a part of CannaCon, and didn't really host any events for the last 6 weeks. Our last one was back in May. And then now, just with summer, it's warm. We're going to go pretty heavy on events. We have our annual Canna Cantina Lake Michigan Beach Party this coming month. We are doing a golf scramble as well, and then working on our next Sensi night for September 15th. So going to still continue to go strong on events. Our summer issue is about to release. On the cover, I can't wait for that issue to hit the stands, because it's about a small family-owned business. Like, this business is run by a 73-year-old woman in Clare and her boys. It's called the Hempire Collective, and it's just such a great story. They lost one of their brothers. He died of cancer. He was using cannabis to treat his cancer, and that's why they have their business. Their business has always been focused around him and helping others in their community.
I've heard the name of the business before, but I never knew much about it. That's
if you've
very
not
interesting.
been out there, go. Like,
Yeah.
Hempire, they're awesome. That's one
Incredible
of the ones.
people.
Yeah,
Cool.
very awesome. Great product.
Good.
Cool place to go to. Yeah, and they're very generous. Like, every time you go somewhere, they're like, here's $100 gift card. Yeah,
They
like,
are.
awesome. Yeah, no,
That
they're
sounds like
super
good
awesome.
people to me.
Yeah,
Have to
They're
meet them,
great
maybe have them
people.
on.
throw that
good.
in there. I like them that much.
Right on.
That's awesome. And the fact that there's a 73-year-old woman that made the decision to run a cannabis business is incredible.
Mhm.
I mean, most 73-year-olds are retiring right now. And she is just, those boys will do anything for their mom too, or those men. So yeah. And then I just recently joined True North Collective as their director of marketing. I've been with them for 6 weeks now and have enjoyed every minute of it. I've always wanted to work with a brand in a marketing capacity, and the stars kind of aligned for that. And, they are very, like 5-Star Extracts is run by, I remember buying 5-Star Extracts in the unregulated days in Lansing. And, it's just awesome to work with such a great team, and they all have incredible intentions and great products. I was a fan of the products before I joined the team, so and just honored to be a part of that. And of course, I'm a partner in a store in Grand Haven. We just got adult use through, and it did not come easy. Our mayor does not like cannabis whatsoever, and I'm hearing a little bit of rumblings about a possible recall happening, and not one that's led by me or anyone in cannabis either.
But the mayor's on the wrong side of history. They should look to see where the support is before just deciding to make that personal decision in that important decision-making capacity that's supposed to be representing a city. So
yeah. We need to see more elected officials show their true colors in those manner, because she didn't really have much to say about cannabis when she was running for election. And then all of a sudden she just completely blindsided everyone. Nobody knew that this was coming. And the last 2 years we made some progression because we got rid of a similar type mayor that had the same type of mindset, got a new mayor in there, but he was quickly replaced, and then we got this one that's just causing a lot of problems right now. So I think it's really important. Like, you're talking about elections, we got to get out there and vote. I'd like to see more industry people run for office, and let's make our voices heard, because really, there's a lot of these decisions are made by people that are completely clueless.
that's unfortunately a a consistent theme for many years in decision making concerning cannabis issues on the local and state level. But can't be said enough. So thank you for pointing that out. And that's how the process weeds some of these people out, so to speak. So, hopefully it does. And sometimes it takes a while. And, patience is something you have to learn along the way too, if you're coming into the world of, trying to help shape things properly. So.
Absolutely.
So that's all very cool stuff. You have a lot going on your plate. And on top of that, and I'm not sure in which capacity, it could be, any one of those, I guess, you're going to be giving a presentation about social equity tomorrow with the CRA. And if people want to join that, here's the link.
I'll be there.
And let me see if I can show the graphic that goes along. Oh, maybe not. Might take me a second. I'll try to show the graphic that goes along with it. But please let people know what you plan on. Just the headlines, basically. What you plan on talking about.
Yeah, pretty much everything marketing and advertising related. We'll be talking about social media. We'll be talking about traditional marketing, whether it's advertising. We'll be talking about public relations, loyalty, creating a really strong brand. As we see more saturation, marketing is going to become incredibly important, and really thinking about how you're going to drive your customer to keep coming back, and how to really create that trust with them is going to be just so important right now. And so that's Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern. And would love anyone who's interested in just kind of learning more about marketing and getting a little bit more defined on their marketing, having a strategy in place, and, some of the resources that you can use around that. Definitely join join us on the session.
I'm excited. I'm going to be there. So yay. That's exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you.
All right.
Oh, and then community too. Community. I'm always going to encourage being a part of the community. If you're a brand and you're not a part of the community, good luck, because it seems that the consumers like to buy from brands that they trust, and we like to do business with people that we trust as well.
Jamie, what do you see as, I want to say, hot topics among consumers? Like, because what you say is 100% accurate. Like, even just thinking from a consumer's perspective, that if brands are not marketing themselves, and by marketing, we're talking about deals, and why do I want to come and see you particularly? Because I can see 100 other people if I want. Why you? And what are some of the, I guess, tactics or things that you're seeing among brands now that are becoming more popular?
Honestly, it's the software. The tactics are hidden in the software. There's so many amazing companies that really help us better organize our data. Data is just as important as money itself. And it's golden. And, being able to organize that and consistently be sending out message, keeping your branding consistent too, because there's a lot of there's a lot of these companies that have their umbrella brand, and then they also have multiple brands underneath that umbrella, and so it can kind of cause some confusion in the consumer. And just like making your messaging clear is really important. And like I said, just community involvement is key. It really is. And but there's some amazing softwares like Spring Big that helps with text message marketing. Weed Maps has had a ton of acquisitions lately. They have a new CRM under their umbrella. They also acquired Enlighten that has display screens in the retailers. And so I think, it's going to be a lot of information that maybe some marketers really didn't take into consideration over, as they've been operational.
That's interesting. Yeah. It's Joe Sullivan points out that, having a quality product is better than any marketing tactic. But I would raise the question that if I don't know that quality product exists.
So there's a combination of things, just from my perspective. And I'm embarking upon a project with Rick, and some of those details will come out over the next few months. And we're trying our hand in this for the very reasons that we were all discussing. So you can do some things and you can work it. You can have a good idea to draw somebody's attention to the product, and that's important in the saturated market right now. Once somebody's attention is drawn to the product and they try it, it has to stand on its own, as Joe says now, in order for somebody to want to come back and get it again. So those things have to all come together.
100%.
And Jamie, I don't want to beleaguer it or bring it up too much, but Spartan brings up there's still animosity going on. And I was involved with bringing attention to this work that your magazine, accepts advertising from some of the undesirable big money interests sometimes. That's still a thing that's out there. And I just apologize for my part in that. I know I said it to you privately, but I don't mind publicly saying it because I don't like the fact that that's still going on. I do realize that those who take issue with it are very passionate people who don't like these big money interests, causing issues. And that's what it's based on, not, really direct hatred toward you or something, personally, but just hopefully that you're guiding through that a little bit. And, and hopefully those places work themselves out of rotation, quite honestly. And your business is done more with the places like you're with and other companies that demonstrate their understanding of the historical and cultural perspective here in Michigan and make good decisions and that type of stuff.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jamie. I appreciate it. It is what it is. There's a lot of ancillary companies that do provide services to big, medium, small businesses. And, Sensi has never had any sort of affiliation with the MCMA. I've never had one conversation with them at all. And, at the top of that boycott graphic has always said that these companies are affiliated with the MCMA and Sensi is not. So, I appreciate a lot of people for that actually know me, know my intentions, and know where I stand on the issue.
Right on. It gets complex in a lot of ways, and I appreciate that. I also have spoken to Berg and Roach, Berg mainly from being behind a lot of the stuff, and we are joined with Stacy, who will help take us into the next stage of the conversation here in a minute. It was on with us last week. And I think there's some definitions that probably should be reassessed. If you want to give people shit for the associations or for being, sub brands or something like that, to me, that's a separate page. Let's recognize this in this way. But there are this list of core companies, whether or not in the MCMA, many of them are not anymore, who have lobbyists who are trying to affect change in one way or another, who are ignorant, who think that if they hurt caregivers, it's going to help them. And we do have to work against them, and they should be on a separate, solid, here are these, 5, 6, 7 places that are a real problem, that are funding all this activity, that are making some headway, getting momentum on bad bills. We have talked about some possible good news and shift in that, arena, in terms of the focus of some of these interests might be more inwardly focused on trying to get regulatory overview and things like that within the industry to work better and to work on a lot of the costly restrictions and to make things more functional from that way and not really worry so much about other activity. So, I've heard that those discussions have taken place. So I kind of hope that that's true. And if so, that would be a much better position than these companies wasting a lot of time and energy and focus on something that's, based off of just not really understanding what's going on. Making bad decisions, of course, is what we keep on pointing out. I'm not sure if I got this one yet, but happy that Northern Specialty Health is hanging with us today, and happy that they're pointing out Mark Schnanaquet. So, and you got a little support here too, Jamie.
Awesome. Thanks, Richard.
And Joe was saying, I think what got Sensi on that list was marketing of MCMA companies. And that's what we were talking about. Where's the line? You can not like that. That's fine. I don't actually like it. And it wasn't just that anyway that I originally responded to. It was something else, but it turned into something. I took it further than it needed to go. And, and it turned into something other than what I was originally intending to try to point out. So the whole thing's kind of a mess in some way or another, but there's a lot of passion and people who really want to, stop these forces from hurting the caregivers. So I totally understand that. So that said, Jamie, anything you want to make sure that you get in, and then also let us know about your thoughts on the primary and some of the important candidates that you would like to see people take a look at.
Well, I'm always going to be a fan of our current governor and especially our current attorney general. I think they've done a lot of fighting for our industry and have been very supportive. And there's a lot on the line. There's a lot that we don't want to see happen within legislation around the industry. And I think it's important that we are really researching every one of these candidates and making sure we know who we are going to show up to the polls and vote for. And more importantly, supporting them during these elections, because it's not easy to run for office. They're fundraising like crazy. They are having to market themselves like crazy. They're dealing with a lot of mudslinging and knocking on doors, and the door knocking is the most important part. That's getting in front of people and being understood. So I think it's just important. I want to encourage everyone in the industry to really look at who's running in your communities and at the statewide level and know who you're voting for.
Right on. Appreciate it, Jamie. And any websites or anything like that you want to throw to people, just if there's more interest in some of the stuff you're talking about?
Yeah, just follow me on social media, Canna Jamie on Instagram, Canna Jamie on Facebook, and then True North Collective MI and is True North's Instagram, and then Sensi Magazine is Sensi's Instagram. I see Rick.
Yeah, Mr. Fun Guy.
Hi.
Just joined us.
What's up, brother?
Hey, how are you?
Good, man.
And so I think Trish knows somebody in the 68th district who people should be taking a look at for sure.
Yeah.
So you want to let people know about Amy's current status of Amy's. Let people know a little bit more about Amy's.
I think we are in a good position. I mean,
Good.
This is the first time this district had somebody run for 4 terms. Tim Sneller's had the space for a long time, so there's been a lot of time for people to start looking into the other people in their community. It's a really weird race. We have a lot of potential against us, but to be quite honest with you, paying attention to the numbers and looking at everything that we have going on, we're still failing, and I'm not really going to say that I'm worried. I think that we are in a good spot. We just got to keep on pushing through, and thank you to everybody else that is watching right now too, who's been sharing all of our information and steadily being involved with the content that matters. If you can't donate, you can't show up or whatever, even sharing your content is useful too. So yeah, other than that, we have about 2.5 weeks. We've been campaigning like crazy. We've went and seen the governor and the attorney general. We've seen you, and of course we saw Dan Kildee. It's been a lot, but I can tell you this much: I'm not worried. I think we're going to get past this primary.
Right on. And people should support Amy. And again, I just took it off, but here it is again. Amy Carter, the number 4, staterep.com. And there's probably an Act Blue or some other link on there in which you could donate, I assume.
Yeah. Yes.
And so please do. And August 2nd is the thing. Now, any other candidates from other races that you've noticed that you think people should take a look at August 2nd?
Stephanie Chang, Jimmy Johnson.
When you say Stephanie Chang,
Eric
okay.
Gunnels. Yeah, Eric Gunnels. Anybody else? There's a lot. There's a lot.
Lily Cheng Schulting is who I thought of when you first said.
Lily, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Stephanie's already in the Senate. Excuse me.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's definitely, and she's been on the show before, and I agree with that. Paul, do you have any names to throw out there from your perspective that people should look at? We're cannabis based view here, although if there's somebody who's a really good candidate just all around too, that's important to look at.
Admittedly, I'm aware of some of the locals in my area, but this race has really been about identifying who the problems are for me. a lot of Looney Tunes and gullible folks and some chuckleheads out there that thinking they want to get into government. And I've been focusing on being a speed bump rather than a ramp for some of those people. So that's been my political agenda this year. But I've got my list of some of the locals I think that are considerable and at least cannabis friendly. But I live in a urban district with a lot of contests here. But yeah, there's a couple good ones, but this is the first time where I've seen more outwardly and overt terrible ones that want to,
You inspire more people to join the processes and stuff, and then sometimes you get what you ask for. Anton, any names you want to throw out there?
For me, the biggest one is the governor's race and the attorney generals. I think that, and I'm a guy who has historically voted Republican, right? And I think this last election cycle has completely changed my tune. I never identified myself as Democrat. I guess I'm more of an independent, but I think Governor Whitmer and Dana are very important to the progression, if you will, of where Michigan needs to go. And I think it's more representative of what the people are looking for. And Amy, I'm a big fan of Amy. And like I said, Eric Gunnels, I think I've had a lot of, conversations, and I like where their heads are at, and nothing, as Paul points out, there's no Looney Tune-ish extremism that pops out. Right. So, and I think unfortunately the fact that being level-headed and unbiased is like a quality that is very, very rare among political candidates nowadays.
And you could be of any party and have those qualities.
Any party, doesn't matter.
Don't necessarily see it too much anywhere.
It's a mindset. Yes. Absolutely.
Joe Sullivan's supporting Mike Hoadley in the 99th district, and he's currently the mayor of Eau Gray. So appreciate that, Joe. And anybody else that has one too in the comments, we'll throw it up there. Stacy, anybody you want to mention for people to look at coming up for the August 2nd primary, mainly?
Well, I have to agree with Anton, definitely on Whitmer and Dana Nessel's side.
Whitmer has so those guys are in the November race, and so I agree too. And please mention them if you support them. And then just trying to home in on the primaries, but this is informal. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah, right on. There was a woman that was running for judge at the Nessel fundraiser. I cannot remember her name.
I'm looking around for a card. I had it here.
She was wonderful. She was really wonderful. And going back to just being level-headed, I think that if you're on the forefront of,
What's the name?
What was her name?
It's Washtenaw County. I know that much.
Oh, okay. Right. I remember Maya, Maya, something. I don't want to confuse anything. So we will figure it out, and I'll make sure that properly announced later. But yes, it was a judge for circuit court in Washington County in some capacity, but I don't know much more about it.
Yeah, she was great. Other than that, I don't have anybody else specific at this moment in time, but anybody that's pro-cannabis is probably more level-headed, so I'm going to most likely vote for them.
So, and Joe doesn't know who's running for Democrat, but the point is, if you're familiar that somebody has got a good position on cannabis, I think they're worth looking at. I mean, we kind of come from a cannabis-centric position here. I mean, for the show anyway, other individuals could have their own, thought of what's more important, but, I think it doesn't matter what the party is. If somebody's thinking sensibly, you might find a quality candidate, potentially. Rick, anybody out in your area that you want to mention for support or for people to look at for the primaries?
Yeah, our current state rep, Brad Paquette. I'm not sure what district we've changed to. I believe we were for the 58th, but that's probably changed now. He is definitely a supporter. He'll be out at my my golf outing this fall, and he's a big supporter of this industry, and he's leaned into it, as he's also come to my micro grow and taken a look at it, and he's a representative that wants to find and see the validity in it. So
and he's in office right now, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And he's a Republican.
Yes.
And he also was one of the few in opposition of House Bill 5512, which we all
Yes.
didn't like, but with most of the lawmakers were kind of duped into supporting. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that. And that had a lot to do with you letting them know about giving them that information to work with.
Sure. Yeah.
No,
And then of
talking
course,
about
Dana.
that particular. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Just, and of course, Dana Nessel and Governor Whitmer. So,
Right on. Go ahead, Trish.
Let's talk about who not to vote for.
Who not to vote for? Sure.
I
I'm
mean, if
down with
there's
that
really
discussion. We've
anything
done the
that you
round
need to be
on this.
careful about. Yeah, absolutely. So, House Bills 5300 through 5302, which would be Richard Steenland, T.C. Clemens, and Jim Lilly. Jim Lilly is termed out. He's going to go work for Spartan Nash, which there's an interesting connection between that and Aurora. We'll talk about that later. Then Richard Steenland is running in his district again, and then T.C. Clemens is running for Senate. So those names in particular are the ones you want to make sure if they're in your district not to vote for them. If you want to vote based on a cannabis experience, basically.
And they were kind of unapologetic
then,
about wanting to take a shit on caregivers, I think. And, and that shouldn't get a whole lot of support.
No.
As an Ottawa
but
County-
he's going around telling people.
Go ahead, Jamie.
And as an Ottawa County constituent, I'm so glad that Jim Lilly is out. I mean, just as happy to see him gone as I was Arla Meekoff.
Right.
Right.
We get Ronnie Peterson and Gary Howell too as well.
So Ronnie Peterson is term limited out. He is running for county commissioner in Washtenaw County. And he's running against a dude named Justin. I can't think of Justin's last name, but Justin's an incumbent. I've met him. He's much cooler than Ronnie Peterson. Ronnie Peterson has a established name in the area, so that gives him some weight at the ballot box. But I wish I could think of Justin's last name. People should vote for him. Also, Annie Somerville's running for county commission, and so is former Representative Yusuf Rabi. That Washtenaw County Commission could be just outstanding. The prosecutor's office is outstanding with Ellie Savitt and Victoria Burton Harris. A lot of the local councils have really good people on it. I'm excited for Washtenaw County.
We have out here in Macomb, is it Terrence McCoskey, I believe is the name. I keep seeing on all the signs, and I did a little digging around there, and I was scared to death if that guy gets in. It's it'll be Jesus and all this other nonsense that I am totally cool with, but I don't believe people should be shaping policy based off of religious beliefs.
Well,
and
yeah.
the more I candidates I see in the Macomb County area, the more it scares me, because we're not acting on the best interest of all the people at that point, right? And everything I read nowadays is about Christianity and all this, but cannabis is not a word that's spoken out here, and it's not liked. And we need to get folks who are more representative of everybody, not just some people.
Right on. Trisha, were you still going down your list?
No.
I'm sorry.
No, that's basically, I'm just steadily waiting to find out what Stacey's going to say. So I'm just being patient.
Oh, Stacey,
I'm kind
give us
of interested now. Yeah. Cause
give us so much wisdom
something
right
to
now
say,
that
but I
all of
want
our
to
lives will be changed forever and all problems of the world will be solved. Go.
About what? Are we still talking about voting?
I wasn't sure what she was referring to.
no,
I
I just
assumed
kind of
she
need
meant
to
that you had the
really
answers
quick,
to world peace and cures for various
Right.
diseases and stuff like that.
Oh, is
No,
that a switchover? Okay, smooth.
We did want to get a little bit more into, and we had a question that we kind of spun around earlier about fallout from the saturated market, and from the perspective of those industry participants and employees in the industry. And then we also kind of tried to take the view from what's the ultimate result for the consumer. What are the consumers, experiencing? And so I know, and you were on last week, and we talked about the concept of unionization, and we used Loom as an example. We also used Loom during this conversation too, because it came up in the comments. I guess just based on that basic question, to get another conversation started along these lines, and from your perspective, which we know has been, delving a little bit deeper into this whole thing, what's the fallout from this weird market on industry participants, employees, and if you have an opinion, what does it look like for the consumer?
Great question. Hey everybody. There's a lot of fallout. That fallout, I think, comes in the form of what we've all been talking about, which is a low quality product. You know, the high, you know, what they perceive to be a high demand, which ends up being overproduction in a uncapped market, comes down to a lower quality product. Why does it become lower quality? Well, that money that was initially invested went into things like marketing and making things look beautiful, and, you know, maybe buying what two guys that were caregivers for 5 years, you know, told them to buy based on how much something was and something they saw on YouTube. But when you're growing 10,000 plants, like, that is a whole other kit and caboodle. That is a whole other way to grow. And if there's no training on that, then that's when bad things happen. And that's when, you know, not only are workers subjected to bad conditions and grows, but then that trickles down to the consumer, you know, who gets remediated cannabis. You know, we were at CannaCon this weekend, Latrisha, and Jamie, I saw you interviewing Rob Sims on Saturday, which was awesome. That was a great conversation, by the way. Fun fact about the, what is it, NFL, is that they do drug testing, and they do it twice a season. One is on 4/20, and the other one is on like August 6th or something.
I assume people could just go online and probably
4/20.
find this interview and watch it. You know,
Yeah,
right?
sorry, sidebar.
That's okay. But I mean, people should watch it if they have interest, because that sounds interesting. So, I mean, it's probably find it in your social media, Jamie, I would assume.
Yeah, well, Calvin did say that one of the drug testing days is on 4/20, and how evil that is. It's crazy.
So Rob Sims and Calvin Johnson, it's called Primitive. Is that right?
Yes.
Their line, their brand? Okay. Very cool.
Yeah,
Go
and
ahead, Stacey.
I'll go searching for the recording. Surely they're floating around somewhere. I did see people
should watch.
recording.
Sounds interesting. I'd like to check it out myself. So, but go ahead, Stace. Continue on.
But yeah, so anyway, going back to how it gets to consumers, or how it affects consumers, I mean, with any kind of oversaturation, the bubble's bursting. And that's just the long and short of it. You can't have an uncapped market and then just expect, and especially an uncapped market in a state that allows municipalities to opt in or opt out. You know, I mean, if you look at a map, you can go to Weed Maps and zoom out of the state, and, you know, what do you see is all these little pockets. Can you guys see me? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So what you get is all these little pockets, and those pockets are oversaturated, and therefore the market is oversaturated. You know, not everybody has the money to drive, you know, 45 minutes away to a municipality that is opted in. So there's a lot of things that are, it's not just one aspect. There's a lot of things that are going on. Also, in these small areas, they're burning through the talent pool. Okay, they're straight up burning through the talent pool. You hire people in, you promise a lot of things, right? You promise good jobs, you promise good wages, and generally in areas where there's not a lot of opportunity to begin with, cannabis companies will do offer something more than other places do, like gas stations and grocery stores. You know, they're hiring at least a few dollars more an hour, which is great if you live in Christmas, Michigan, where Loom was, right? Now here, let's go into Loom. Some fallout that we're seeing now is that businesses are closing, right? We're seeing, acquisitions, right? So Skymint, Green Peak Innovations, they grabbed 315, and just recently found out that all of those 315 dispensaries were closed. That was found out on Reddit after Loom closed. Somebody else was like, hey, yeah, I lost my job too. Nobody was talking about that. There was a lot of them on 8 Mile. So we're seeing these places close, and in a place like Christmas, Michigan, where is very unique because of Loom's tribal contract. Now, from my limited understanding of what that contract is about, I believe that Loom is the only cannabis company that can operate on that land. So there was only one dispensary From the workers that I've spoke to in that area, there is no other option. There is no other dispensary. There is no other place for them to go work. So that store was open for 9 months.
Well, just as an aside, I spoken to, I don't know about directly connected to this store, but at large about Loom has a reputation with the native community of not coming through with their, satisfying promises and operating in the way they expect and getting the benefits that they were, told that were coming and all that kind of stuff. But go ahead.
Right now, and that's the unfortunate trend with Loom is they like to come in and strong arm. So in the same breath of them closing 4 stores, which by the way, I have a couple copies of different workers' exit agreement. The ones that I have in my possession are not of, they haven't been signed. They don't plan on signing them. But in there, it says that, your employment has been terminated, and this is part of a planned closing. They said this was a planned closing. Planned to whom? It certainly wasn't planned or told to any of the workers, any of the bottom line. None of
that's
them.
So I don't want to cut you off, but that is a common corporate approach in seasoned industry. And it's one of the issues I have when it gets applied into this emerging industry. And I don't believe it's appropriate. Not that it can't be, but for what you describe, exactly, there's an issue in this environment. So I just wanted to point that out. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're right. It is you can't have, this is such a volatile industry, and to be acting so brazenly, disrespecting communities and disrespecting citizens, the mental aspect of this, because we all know that cannabis is so special to, for lack of a better word, is that, there is a different level of feeling in this industry, and there is a lot of heart and compassion and attachment to it. So this really does affect workers, maybe, and I don't want to say more, but really does affect workers in a different aspect, because this resembled and was pitched as hope where there really wasn't a lot of, and especially in small communities where there isn't a lot of opportunity there. So, this is part of that fallout. I think in the next 18 months, we're really going to see a lot of weird shit going on. More closings. Unfortunately, this is going to bleed into the grows, because generally that's where most of the employees reside. Or if you're vertically integrated, you have a lot more workers in a grow than you do in a dispensary, right? Especially, if you're holding several Class Cs or whatever it might be. So the first fallout that you're going to see is people losing their jobs. And when people lose their jobs, that's when, integrity comes into play in this industry. It's not about if you have a flashy storefront. It's about, oh, you're shitting on our community right now. Why the hell would I go and shop at your store? If you're treating citizen, or if you're treating workers like that, who are citizens at the end of the day, your neighbor, my neighbor, how are you treating the product, and how are you treating the plant, and what are you treating? Do you care about the environment that it grows in? The likelihood is no. I've worked in one commercial grow. I've been in several, and it is a vast difference from ones that give a shit to ones that don't. And that just comes down to how closely you place your tables together. So if you've ever been in a commercial grow before, there's usually these really long tables that are on rollers. And you can kind of move them back and forth, and, they can weigh thousands of pounds. And sometimes, these tables are put so closely together that workers, there's no room. It's not if, it's when femurs are going to get crushed. And they have. I've talked to workers that have gotten seriously injured just by lack of, we need to fit more plants in a room, profit over people. That's going to come out, and it is coming out. The more workers that speak up, the better. I really want to touch on something that Adam said last week. He said, something called a snitch list. And I guess I get the concept of what he's saying, but a snitch implies somebody that, you know, that we're all working behind the scenes. This is a licensed market, people that are paying taxes and employing people. You're not snitching. You're trying to make your workplace a better place. And by making the workplace a better place, you're making the environment for the consumer and you're making the product better for the
I don't remember
consumer.
the context, but oftentimes Adam wants others to expose bad actors, and sometimes that's what he means when he starts talking like that. I'm not positive.
And I agree with that. But I think the snitch word is a little much there. You know.
He's a sensational, off the cuff, you know, weird dude. You know, hopefully he makes it back here soon. He's going through a lot of recovery.
Oh yeah, man. Get well soon, Adam.
Yeah. And he was on Medical Mondays last night, and he made it on there because somebody called and woke him up for it. So I'm assuming he's sleeping through this, but I don't mind him getting his rest for a couple of weeks while he can recover. But Rick, you kind of, you know, in some ways, in my position with, you know, a foot in, you know, the commercial world and a foot in the, you know, more activism, advocacy, caregiver world, and just wonder what your thoughts are on this stuff, like the fallout from what's going on in the commercial market. How is it affecting the whatever you want to call it, the non-commercial markets, or, you know, that type of stuff, and
Right.
and just to mention how you've been around some of the Rainbow Farm stuff and split off with some others, and now doing really well with the 420 Cloud Big Cloud, right?
Big Cloud.
Big
Yep.
Cloud Productions.
Yep.
And so, you know, you're seeing all this stuff firsthand. You're in the center of what's going on both sides of the fence.
Well, man, I mean, you know, to some regard, as you fight and push and work all these angles in this industry, you kind of sit back and you throw your hands up and you're like, okay, let's just see what happens. And it's starting to unravel, right? So some of those things that we've said and some other people have pointed out and brought to attention are coming more to fruition now. And it's being seen without us having to say, I told you so. It's just happening. Sadly, it's on the backs and opportunities and dreams of employees and things like that. But if we can find the validity in these actions and what's happening, then maybe we can look at opportunities for real citizens of the state and people that deserve an opportunity, like our veterans and like our people that have been caregivers for years and need an opportunity and, you know, and looking for a legitimized opportunity. Some of these licensed things, I think the events particularly have a long way to go as far as the licensure and what's right and what's wrong and how they're going to operate. I think there needs to be two sides to it. If there's going to be a caregiver side of cannabis and then a recreational side, then caregivers have to have some truth in our operational procedures like the licensed industry has. So they get a license and they're in a safe place. Well, we play fiddledick with laws and amended rules and amendments to do what we have to do legally, but should we have to? You know? So yeah, we got a long ways to go with our legislation, and who gets voted in matters because these things are coming to their desk. There's going to be new House bills and there's going to be new ideas, and we need more structure.
Yeah, right on, man. So, and we can help shape stuff in many different ways. And that's true. And I'm wondering, we can talk about that in a minute, but I'm wondering, Anton, if you've been around earlier, if you caught that part of the discussion that we had, and now we just revived it now. I don't know if you've had a chance to weigh in on your assessment of the fallout in the industry, or what that means, you know.
I think it's been you know, when we look at even how the world existed, right? We have these volcanoes and there's explosive activity, and that's how you progress, right? And I think that's what we're seeing in the industry now, is that you have the caregiver side of things and the patient side of things. is kind of reorganizing itself, and you have the licensee side of things. You have these big corporations who are just gobbling each other up. You have the smaller operators who are banding together to keep the bigger guys off their backs. And it's like the world is shifting, and where it's going to shake out, I have no idea, but it's interesting to see. And I think it's provoking a lot of interesting, constructive conversations. And at the end of the day, folks who may not have seen eye to eye in the past are now banding together and say, hey, we do have something in common. And a lot of the negativity, I think that even was just months ago, is subsiding, and people are realizing that if this is going to survive and be a thing that benefits everybody, that we need to work together.
I like that. I missed a little bit, but I like that.
Well, I mean, hopefully, you're seeing the ability for even people who disagree on a lot of things coming together to, fix the common problem, fight the common enemy, kind of a scenario. And it does show up a lot, in these circumstances a little bit more, gets exposed.
There are people who I do not agree with, that I am sure that if there was an issue that was raised that was a true threat to people, patients, caregivers, we would band together and we would be constructive, right? I think there's very little that goes on in this industry or even in this culture. The culture by its very nature is one of the promotion of healing and being together. That's what the plant is about, right? And so those who we may not even agree with will come together and we will do what needs to be done.
Higher perspective.
True. Yep.
I agree. And that's, of course, missing in the decision-making process, as we keep on saying from a lot of these places that we take issue with.
Yep.
Understanding what's going on. Like, what'd you step into? You're surprised that there's this other activity going on, so
It's
just kind of
it's a motivation thing. Remember, there's people that are simply motivated by greed and money. That's why they exist. And that's how they've gotten. And unfortunately, the way our society is set up, those are the people that get ahead. Those are the people that progress. Those are the people that get to the top. Those are the people that influence those who
learn how to work a system that's not necessarily fair. I mean, so yeah, it takes some ingenuity and some experience and, stuff like that to get there. But yeah, a lot of resources.
A lot of
Still
money.
not cool, not impressed, Sorry, it wasn't best for everybody,
Well,
Jamie's
that's
issue touches on that a little bit tomorrow, in some ways.
I mean, lawmakers aren't supposed to make things expensive. Lawmakers are supposed to make things just and equal for people to be able to have the same opportunities. And that's, one of the reasons why I decided to back Amy when we decided to have her run, is after going to speak to lawmakers about the situation and the constant, it pisses me off more than anything that you get ignored by your own representative. It's like you almost have to write a thesis for them to even consider speaking to you. And I think that's ridiculous.
Sometimes the squeak wheel gets a grease. I've written them and said, look, I've written you a bunch of times. I've texted. Nobody's, what the hell's going on? I'm a constituent. Sometimes they respond if you give them enough, shit. And I meant to say Jamie's message on Thursday, not tomorrow. Just to be clear. And
So haven't you talked to any lawmakers recently?
say it again. I'm sorry.
I said, Rick, have you spoke to any lawmakers recently?
Recently, no. Well, Cynthia Johnson. But that's it recently.
Hey, we didn't bring her name up earlier, but I would like to now. She has a tough challenge as a write-in candidate for the primaries. Anybody in her district, try to help her out. That has won in Detroit before. Mayor Duggan won his first race, in part.
Yeah, I believe
to the write-in process.
Yeah, I believe she's looking for volunteers to help her Tuesday at the ballot boxes for just support.
Right on. So can I consult you? Says those are the people pushing cannabis as product, not as medicine. I think that kind of a variation of that, or something that I believe also is some of the larger interests view cannabis as a widget and not as the diverse product of several types and forms and delivery systems and different things that people need or want that it provides. And it seems to be like something a lot more, minimalized in the minds of some people that approach this market. So that in part is what I see from that thing. But it is also true that people get away from the fact that it's health, wellness, medicine component also and push the, just get stoned type thing, which, perfectly 100% fine with.
Right.
Don't get me
But
wrong,
I think,
but all that information should be out there for people to consider.
yeah. I think personally, recreational is been steadily pushing the medicinal values and the medicinal conversation to the side. So you got recreational doing all the things with the celebrities, and I'm guilty of it too, right? I'm dealing with the celebrities as well, but some of the ones that I am dealing with, I do line up with the medicinal values of things. But I feel like it's just veering away from that too much. We have to know that first and foremost, this thing is here to help us, and with saving and helping people change their lives with this plant, whether it be RSO or whatever. When you see that firsthand, you can't divert from it. It's like the first purpose of cannabis is that.
Another good reason why the caregiver system has to remain intact and available for anybody who may need to use it, particularly if they're in an RSO, using situation for a cancer run or something like that, where you need you need maybe somebody to work with you on some certain things to be in there that, there's so many factors that you just can't go to the store and take care of that.
Yeah, they just don't care.
And then the other thing is the actual medical commercial program, the MMFLA, is a shitty program. It says medical, but it's not functional. It's very restrictive. It's very prohibitive. It's very expensive. It's very limited. The AU is a much better, or REC is a much better approach as far as being open. You can incorporate all of the things that are in the medical program into that one way or another. And it would behoove companies to start making sure that they let people know that they are prepared and make sure that their staff is ready to help people out, very specifically with medical health, wellness issues, even though they might just be a complete AU store. There's people who need that service, and to provide it would be a good idea for many places.
So we got to remember, though, if medical goes, then so does the standard for testing. Now, there is a standard of testing when it comes to, I think it's CFU. I'm not a scientist. I'm not entirely sure, but there's some parts per million that's going on, right? And
for microbial testing, yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Jamie. So in Michigan, we have the medical side. The standard is 10,000 parts per million for the microbials. In the AU area, it's 100,000.
Right.
Now, I have a letter written from Willow, like the remediating.
That's the ionizing machine that will remediate cannabis. Yeah.
Right. And this is a letter to the state of Connecticut. And it says here, and I can find it really quick, sorry, that they recommend that anything under or over 10,000, here it is, sorry. We recommend that the action level of 100,000 CFU for total yeast and mold be adjusted to 10,000. From our experience in other states, an action level of 100,000 is very high for raw cannabis and is likely a sign that there was some major source of contamination during the cultivation process. Now, it specifically brings up Michigan here, saying that medical was originally at 100,000 CFU, and after consideration, recognizing that medical patients need more protection, Michigan lowered it to 10,000 CFU, making it safer for patients.
I don't remember that, but if it happened,
this was written to the state of Connecticut. So this is coming from Connecticut, from Willow.
Well, they could have made an error in judgment, looking at the two numbers and thinking that one was reduced to the other, or something like that. I don't remember medical being 100 and being reduced to 10,000. I mean, maybe it was, and that's kind of irrelevant to the whole point. But
Well, it currently is. So if we lose medical, are we going to lose that standard of testing of,
So
things being tested at
that's
10,000
that's
rather
a
than
good one to
100,000?
talk about. And I'd like to get some other lab people on here. I have an interesting perspective on that. I do want to get can I consult you here? And we talk about how cannabis, generally works sometimes, and how it feeds the endocannabinoid system, and that helps to regulate the other systems. And that's why this whole long list of things that it can help, starts off at that base level of just being able to help make things work properly in the first place. And there's other things too. So whenever you use it, your endocannabinoid system gets that benefit, and whatever benefit that there is, you benefit from that. So you're not escaping getting some type of, help from cannabis, even if your intent was just to get stoned. And I think that's true. But we do have these different systems, and as we're describing them, just as they are. But that's good information to know. You're not, you're not escaping benefiting from cannabis, even though your intent is just to get stoned.
Yeah. I think
That's-
it's
that's-
reasonable.
So go ahead, Rick.
Sorry.
Jamie or Rick?
Yeah, I was just gonna chime in. Like, that's like, because I started smoking consistently when I was living in Colorado and had really good accessibility to it, and I found out I was moving to Michigan, and then I stopped using to prepare for a drug test because I knew I would never get a marketing job in Michigan being a user. This was in 2014. And when I stopped using to prepare for that, I had so many problems come back, like insane amount of problems. And I didn't realize, like, to the point where, like, it was I was having troubles in the middle of the night. I was actually waking up in the middle of the night, like regurgitating like food that I'd eaten hours ago. And what it was doing, it was relaxing my esophagus. And I had no idea. And then, like, I stopped using, and all of a sudden those problems came back, and I'm like, whoa. And so I came to Michigan, and that's why I'm in the industry now, because when I got to Michigan, I was so pissed off seeing people get arrested for using cannabis because they didn't have their medical marijuana card, and so, like, it's like, I think recreational use, you might be using it to take the edge off at night, but it's helping you in so many other ways.
Right on. I agree with that. And Rick, you were going to say something, and she's writing, or they're writing again, we need relief, and the only way mainstream knows how to use it, smoke it.
Yeah.
I love the raw juice. The juice does it for me. I get a really good benefits from that.
I think that caregivers have had a little pushback on the idea of testing. And I, as a caregiver, have been testing for many years. And honestly, it
mandated
helps.
testing. You want it available if you want to use it, or if your patient wants it, but to be
Right.
mandated is the issue.
Yeah. And you want to know how you're doing and from time to time, and see if your process is right. And that's how you do it scientifically. So it makes sense to concede to testing, and really, if some of the caregivers, they throw their shoulders way back and they tell you how great they are, but they've never done a microbial test. And, there's a possibility they might fall above or, around the state limit that wouldn't qualify them to pass. Right.
But it doesn't mean it's bad medicine. I mean, just to be fair to those people growing that stuff.
Absolutely.
And that's what I was going to bring up about the microbial test. If you want to finish up real quick, I'll let you, because I just wanted to talk about it.
With that being said, is cannabis has never killed anybody with the most powdery mildew in the world on it. So,
but there are people that should stay away from it. There are people who are like, have issues with that and are predisposed to it. One of the conversations that I've had with some labs, and I think it'd be cool to have some other other lab representatives who work specifically with this stuff and have seen the feedback on here to give their input. But what about, you don't fail for microbial, you test for microbial, and you post on the label what the parts per whatever unit measurement you want to give it are. And those who might want to stay away from higher levels don't have to buy it. And others who might not care about that.
That's very logical. Yeah. That's a smart approach, I think.
Well, so here's Spartan jumping in on in a very good grower, also Michigan Bros Grow Show. Very good show. Microbial tests are a joke as it is. Testing community has written multiple articles about it. CRA doesn't seem to care. I have sent them. So,
You know, another thing that's important to kind of point out is the average American's view on medicine, let's say, right? Most people go out there, like nobody goes home and says, oh my God, thank God for this blood pressure medication, or holy shit, this Prilosec I have, you know, my stomach feels so good, right? Like, what I find is the people who truly appreciate the plant as a medicine have generally have to gone through hell to get to the point to where they were able to embrace the appreciation for what the plant can do to them. And to get to that point, you really got to go through a lot, right? And the most, like the average American hasn't gotten there yet. And when we talk about medicine, it's become a very commercialized, very mechanical issue. And I think as we find just more people, you know, these obesity and high blood pressure and just people are unhealthy in this country, that the appreciation for the plant will hopefully grow on a more kind of systemic basis, because we're not there yet. We're getting there though.
right on. You know, some of these, yeah, I think we mentioned it earlier. There's a lot of problems out there, a lot of different angles, a lot of going in the wrong direction by decision makers and that kind of stuff. But the truth of the plan is being exposed, and we might have to go through some shit, and it might take a while, but eventually, I mean, that can't be denied, and there will be less restrictions, less prohibitions, more broad and liberal approaches as people get used to this and see what it's all about. I would like to hope, anyway. Don't count on it, probably, for a while. Especially when Philip Morris and Nabisco and those guys take over the whole thing. But that said, we are within the last few minutes or so, and we don't have to stick exactly with what we're talking about. If anybody else wants to make sure that we get some other information in or has something else interesting to close us out with, and then we can spin around for final thoughts. Totally open to it. So yep. There's some Canation training. I hope I'm saying that right. Canation training starts in September, so we can educate the masses. I'm assuming Canna consult you as part of a group that's going to put on some really good training in September and would like people to join to learn some good information. So you want to put up any more information about that, we'll there you go. CannaConsultYou.com. And maybe get deeper into some of the information that we're discussing here. And thanks for being on and watching with us, especially people who like to educate on this stuff and who generally, demonstrate a better perspective than the going down the hole of worrying about if it's high THC or if it's labeled a sativa or indica or something like that. So very cool stuff. And Spartan's reiterating it's important to vote with your dollars. I agree with that too. You can, like we talk about shaping the industry, and that's being done by people here and many people politically and stuff. But you can look a little bit further and be picky about who you choose to give money to, whether based on product or an actual store.
That's something that I want to throw out there. I think that'd be pretty interesting to everybody on the panel too as well. Rick and I actually sat down and talked to Dana and also quite a bit about actually doing some soil remediation with hemp. And that's something that I had brought up to, I don't know, multiple mayors that ran for Flint for quite a bit of time. So she gave us a lot of good input, which is kind of cool. And she said that she'd back us on trying to start figuring out ways to be able to get inner cities remediated with hemp. And so that is something positive from our visit with her too as well.
That is also something that Michael Camorn and his early hemp group started working on too. I wonder if you should make a connection with him just to see whatever they discovered or however far they got with that. And they actually talked about Flint also very specifically. So it could be a discussion there.
But there's a lot of places that promoters haven't really, they just pay their taxes and everything's built around it. So they don't want to, of course, remediate that land because everything that's toxic is underneath the concrete. So
So
our kids and our families are surrounded by these flat lots that have a bunch of toxic trees growing out of it. And so it was something that I originally got into cannabis when I was getting into the cannabis space. I was getting over on the hemp side there to particularly work on this specific situation. So it was pretty exciting for me to hear those words come out of her mouth. But yeah, it's real bad. And it could be just like little Chernobyl and get this
it
stuff
could
done.
work. There's, I mean, I think it was Cass was on here last year or something like that. I was talking about being around some labs, Colorado or Arizona. I forgot very specifically what it was, but there was a particular strain that, grown the same way under the same conditions, all this kind of stuff, but kept on having higher levels of like metals and all this other kind of stuff in it. Anyway, it turns out that it was just more adept for absorbing things than the other plants, and those are the kind of strains that are identified for doing the cleanup type stuff. And they're
Well, that's
out
awesome.
there, and yeah. And, good luck with that. Cause I think that would be really cool. It'd be cool to do that around Detroit and a lot of lots too that are kind of contaminated and lots of places. Probably it'd just be a good thing to bring into regular practice. Give the hemp farmer something to grow for this specific purpose, or to find those genetics that could really do that. Yeah, that type of stuff. That'd be a great one. And I remember having these discussions too before. So the fact that the Attorney General's on it might allow for a little bit more moving forward with something, because that's a little bit higher up than I think any of the discussions that I'm familiar with. And it's
and she was pretty receptive to the idea of the infrastructure, idea of using hemp to rebuild our infrastructure, like the roads and things like
I'm
that.
not sure. I've heard that hemp is not specifically great for roads. It's great for buildings. No? Yeah, I've just heard that from somebody. Doesn't mean I'm an expert on it, but I brought that up myself in the past. Like, we should be paving roads with it, and somebody said it's not the best material for roads, but certainly buildings. They're not flammable. They're very breathable. They stop, things from, I don't know, bacteria and things like that. More, just very, very good medium to use. So hopefully we don't make a lot of sense often. So hopefully, we do. In some of these cases, like I said, the truth keeps on exposing itself, and it makes it easier to kind of move forward. So looks like we lost Trish. I also hope maybe she pops back on before the end, but she's had a lot of connectivity problems in and out throughout the day. But great job being here with us today. Also, Paul was on for a long time. He's on off and on, but I asked him to come on today because I knew Rick wasn't going to come on, and we had some other shakeups last minute that made us have to adjust a little bit, but it all worked out really well. I really appreciate this conversation. I think we got some really good information on record. That's our goal. Even without Rick, we had some good information on record. There was another Rick and Jamie here. I just make that parallel. Pretty formidable duo in your own right too. So just point that out. Just with a couple minutes left, let's Rick, anything you want to make sure that you get in before we wrap it up today, or anything you want to announce? September Organic Cup.
September is actually our Cure Michigan Cup, and that's going to be September 9th to the 11th at Big Cloud Farms, and then the next one would be our November Organic Cup with Michael Fang, and that one will be November 11th.
Man,
at Big Cloud Farms as well.
Michael Fang, formerly or currently, I'm not sure, Gage Green Group. There's been some shakeup in that whole arena too, but man, the best cannabis comes out of that world. I mean, really good genetics, really well grown, the whole thing. So that's really cool. I'm gonna try to make that one.
That's what the Organic Cup is kind of about. He's got this great vision of organic growing and the community that organics are, and it's a small niche community in comparison to our big corporate, our big rec, our big medical, our big everything. Like it's small batch craft cannabis. It's a different thing, and with that community, I think you get some of the best medicine, like hands down. I've smoked his stuff, and I can honestly say, unbiasedly, if I didn't know who he was, I would be looking for who grew that, because it was amazing. The some of the accentuous things that he's able to pull out by growing organically is things that I've never tasted before. So really
on.
neat.
A lot
Yeah.
of expression of things that we haven't experienced because so many people gravitated toward, high THC shit or whatever and just kind of closed out probably a lot of other options, especially if it wasn't high yielding stuff at the time or, all these different things that make it less desirable. Stacy, anything you want to add before we close it down?
Yeah, man. Thanks again for having me on. If there are any loom workers out there listening, you can shoot me an email at helpforloomworkers@gmail.com. I just spoke with a team of lawyers over at Sugar Law Center for Economic and Social Justice, and got some education about workers' rights in Michigan and things that you guys can do. But it just takes a little bit of reaching out and a little bit of information gathering. But there's a lot of resources out there for people that have lost their jobs recently. So please reach out. And
I was thinking about doing a show on it. There's lots of things like, what do you do with your insurance now? What about preparing a resume for the next time around, or whatever the things are that people are going to be faced with or are faced with, and maybe we'll do one of those. Yeah,
I know that a lot of people would appreciate it, and because there's a lot to say on the matter. The more the better prepared you can be for the future. So that'd be awesome.
That Cobra option is kind of a bullshit, expensive, just procedural fucking stupid thing. There's other options out there because I've investigated it. Anton, you want to lay a couple more?
Great show, great show, everybody. Lots of stuff going on in the veteran community. We had the next $20 million for the veteran research was released recently, and I've been deep diving into that whole issue. So, good things to come, and it was a great show. I always appreciate the conversation with everybody.
Yeah, even without Rick here, we banded together and had a good conversation. So I like it. I do like it when he's around. I'm kind of used to it. And then our guests couldn't make it. So appreciate Jamie, short notice, able to come on. I really do appreciate what you have to say, what you're doing out there. And hope that everything works out well and continues to go well for you, especially sound excited about your new job and everything like that. So anything else you want to add before we close it down?
Yeah, just keep an eye out for the summer issue of Sensi. It will be coming out in the next week or two, and read about the Empire Collective and their really special story.
I have to check into those guys myself.
Yeah, I'll make an introduction. They're
right
really
on.
Great people.
Perfect. All right. Well, that's it for me. We're actually a little bit over. I'm not going to get into too much else. But I thought we had an interesting show too, and did our job this week again. And we'll be back with Rick next week. And in the meantime, maybe we will do kind of a special show to help people out a little bit in their predicament. And I'll talk to you about that, Stacy. All right, everybody. Jazz Cabbage Cafe. Thanks a lot. See you guys next week.
See ya.